morning, everyone. In January of this year, I published the annual policing plan and identified 4 areas that we would work on this year to improve. And they were people, partnerships, priorities, and performance. And in terms of the people component, I strongly believe that our staff are critical to the mission that we have of making Bermuda safer. We are certainly committed to develop all our staff to achieve high standards of competency and performance, and the benefit that comes back to the police comes in the form of public trust, confidence, cooperation, and support. So it really is in our best interest to give the best service we can to the public. I'm pleased to announce today that we've implemented a code of conduct for police officers that gives formal direction to our members on the performance of their duties. The code is a series of 50 statements of ethical behavior that is expected from all police officers. The 50 statements are principles that are based on the service's 7 core values. Now, the content of the code is not new to the police service. We've just codified the behaviors that are expected or prohibited in some cases, both on and off duty. Most of the behaviors center around treatment of other people and the professional conduct that sits behind the services we provide to the public. Some examples: we are making a huge investment in training all our staff to raise their standards when handling telephone calls, as well as face-to-face interactions with the public. Additionally, we formalize the process for disqualifying officers to investigate cases where there's a relationship, such as a family member or a friend. And we've also specified categorically that all relationships, business or personal, with known criminals and gang members will not be tolerated. In terms of accountability for breaching the code, our first approach is always intervention and consequences. This includes training and counseling. The idea here is to encourage officers to change their negative behaviors into positive behaviors. But for serious cases, officers will face disciplinary measures under the discipline code, where the punishment is on a sliding scale from an admonishment to dismissal. The Code of Conduct was developed in consultation with the Police Complaints Authority, and I'm delighted to have the Chair and other members here today to release the document publicly. The value of the code extends beyond the direction it gives to police officers. Members of the public should know what behaviors to expect from their police officers, and they should be assured that officers remain accountable for their actions when providing policing services. So on that note, let me hand you over to the Chair of the PCA.
Thank you, Commissioner. The police complaints came about under the 1998 Act, the Police Complaints Act, and our role is to take complaints against police officers. So we have collaborated with the police and overviewed the Code of Conduct, and are very pleased to support that. I would also introduce my deputy, Mr. Francis, who is on the Commissioner's left. Other members of the police complaints include Mrs. Michelle Simmons, Mr. Esdale, Mr. Warren, and also Mr. Birmingham. We look forward to working with the police and moving on to overhauling the discipline orders next. Thank you.
Is there anything new in this that might catch police officers unaware, or things they weren't sure what to do?
Well, as I said, I don't think there's anything new. I think these values have been around for a long time. What we've done is we've put the effort into codifying it so we can be crystal clear with our staff what behavior is acceptable, what's expected, and certainly what is not to be tolerated.
I noticed you said how any association with career criminals will not be accepted. Given that Bermuda is a very small country, do you think that would be hard? This could be someone's cousin.
Yeah, we were careful to take into account the family relationships, and it's not meant to penalize an officer that has family relationships. They say you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. The idea is about close personal relationships that are just not appropriate for a police officer to engage in if they're expected to then turn around and have to enforce a law with the same people.
It was disappointing to hear Martha Dismont of the family centre say on TV the other night that she had met many people who were not happy with the way they'd been treated, or their families had been treated by the police, and it in some way had spoilt their relationships with the police to the point where they didn't feel like cooperation was in order. Is this going to help, do you think, put that back to order?
I think it is. I think it's something we acknowledged back in January, that it all starts with how you treat people. And we started a campaign of vigorous training throughout the whole organization. And we start with how we treat each other. And we're extending that to how we interact with the public. We're aware, just looking at the complaints, and they average, I think it'd be fair to say, maybe 35 to 45 a year, depending on if it's a good year or a bad year. But overwhelmingly, they center around behavioral issues. They center around conduct. So it was very clear for us that we had to do something positive this year to change that. And I think we're well on the way. And we started before the code came out. We started with internal training that it all starts with how you treat people.
Commissioner, perhaps I could just add to the Commissioner's comments. If the members of the public are aggrieved, they do have the right to make a complaint against the police, and to do that, they would attend one of the police stations, such as Hamilton, Somerset, or the new one down in St David's. It's beneficial for all of us if you do that, because the police complaints has a new system that not only tracks by officer, but also by division, types of complaints, and many other ways. So what happens is, complaints made by the public then give the police service a chance to see where there are systemic changes that they could make within their system. So it's not always about officers. So again, members of the public can attend the police stations and make a police complaint as opposed to a criminal complaint.
Thank you. Could you just, if you just explain the process, if somebody breaks one of these rules then, I mean, what does it, would it go to the sergeant or straight to you or complaints commission? What would be the stage?
I think in simple terms, it goes through the command structure to identify if there's any training opportunities to change the behavior. That's what we're impressing upon supervisors, that the issues around officer behavior are the things that we would like to work on, improve, and change. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But there are clear breaches that just go so far across the line that we would use what's already in place, and it's been around since 1974, is the police discipline orders, which is where the officer gets formally charged with an offence. And that's a slightly different category in terms of dealing with more severe action, which tends to be punishment as opposed to education.
You indicated, Commissioner, that had you finished?
Yes, yeah.
You indicated there were 35 to 45 complaints per year, and going both to you. These are the formal complaints that percolate up through the police complaints authority, correct?
Yes.
And my question is, how many of those are resolved within a year, within 12 months of it being placed?
Those statistics will be coming out in the police complaints annual report, which we're working on at the moment. So those statistics, once the Ministry of Labour and Home Ministry of Labour and Home Affairs has tabled that before Cabinet, that report will be made public, and you'll have all those statistics there.
And that will give the time frame within which the matters are resolved. The resolution is not a great increase at the moment, just they are resolved.
Of course.
The second thing, Commissioner, is this sort of two tiers. There's the formal complaint lodged, and I would call the bitch and murdered an officer that comes in at the station, and then the guy walks away and never comes back. What happens to those? Nothing. I'm not being quasi-serious, but you must get a lot of them. They're not amongst us now.
Certainly we have some that come in and they don't go anywhere because the complainant doesn't proceed with it. What we certainly do, as Mrs. St. Jane mentioned, we look at patterns of behavior, whether it's by officer or the type of behavior, and she spoke about it where systemic changes are needed. And I think the most glaring example is reflected in the approach we've taken to call handling. I think we've had enough evidence to categorically say that that is probably our worst area of performance in terms of how we handle calls that come in from the public. And we started at the end of last year with a series of education and training programs for all our staff, including civilian support staff, because we get it. We're all customers too with other businesses, and there's nothing more frustrating than not getting anywhere when you're trying to communicate by telephone. So we're doing a lot of work in that area.
Will the results of these disciplinary actions be made public?
In terms of the annual report from our end and also from the PCA, we'll certainly give an overview of the cases and the resolution and the types of cases, but in terms of specifics, no.
Yeah. I mean, but what about for the victim? Because I mean, I'm involved in 2 cases, and I didn't know what happened to the officer after.
Yeah, again, the whole communication piece, we know from looking at various surveys that have been conducted over the last 2 years, some commissioned by us and others like the Omnibus survey. Communication is our weak point, and that's why we're making these types of implementations to get better at that. We need to get better at informing the public, the individual members of the public, where their cases are and what the outcome is.
Our officers, when first coming in, subject to psych evaluations?
Yes, they are.
To change tact a bit, Commissioner, I was just wondering, are the police investigating the alleged threat on the Premier? I believe the press secretary made a complaint yesterday.
I'd love to change tack, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here for the code of conduct.
Coming back to the subject, cultural differences. I'm fully aware of the cultural differences in the fundamental approach that apply in different countries. There is a brusqueness in the Caribbean. There is a more sort of formal approach in the UK. And there's going to be a very casual but different approach in the US. Whereas the Bermudian approach tends to be rather friendly. Is this taken into account in this whole process there? Whereas a Jamaican policeman, for instance, who's approaching brusquely but properly, is offending a Bermudian whose perspective and values are slightly sensitive, slightly different. Is that taken into account?
I mean, certainly sitting at the center of our core values is about respect for difference, so that permeates through all our training. Maybe not in specific terms as you've laid out. We try to avoid identifying and labeling, and we take a more sweeping approach to center the training on respect, on accountability, on professional treatment, and we leave the individual cultures out of it, because there's no need to highlight that. We come from a starting point that says you must treat all people that we engage with in a professional manner. And that extends beyond the code of conduct. That starts on day 1 when the recruit enters training school.
So could I say then that you are doing a great deal of sensitivity training in that area, first approach?
Yeah, I think we embrace diversity in all its realms, not just in terms of how we treat other people outside the organization, how we treat each other inside the organization, and also how we make the organization fair to everyone.
Do these sensitivities relate to religion? Is it unopposed of you have a Muslim woman who's about to be arrested, and they are very culturally against a man handling a woman? There's those types of sensitivities.
I think there's more work to be done. I think certainly in the UK they've mastered capturing every single different type of cultural issue you can have, and they've codified the whole thing. We're not there yet, but foundationally I think we're there.
The number of complaints increased as crimes become more serious. I mean, I know a number of us have been tense situations after shootings. Are you seeing that people are making more complaints or less complaints because everything will, like, levels higher?
I don't have data that would go back far enough to be a comparison. It's been a bit of a sine wave over the last few years, from 45 to 23, back up to 35. And then for this year, we're at 33 for the year. So I suppose you could argue this year looks like it might be a little higher than average. Can we say that that's directly related to the increased violence. I wouldn't want to say that.
Last
Sorry, what
question.
was this year's total thus far?
33.
33, thanks.
Last question. Anyone?
Commissioner, can I just check, so obviously this is a public document, this code of conduct, and you would know, I mean, internally what officers are doing if they're breaching things, but can members of the public complain?
That's actually the mandate of the Police Complaints Authority, so let me let the chair answer that.
Yes, so if there is a breach, then they, as I said, would complete a police complaint, which is sent to the Police Conduct Unit and also to the Police Complaints Authority. So, and then it is, progress from there.
So it's fair to say it's internal and external, whoever.
We're the oversight.
Yeah.
And sorry, is this on the police website?
It's on the police website. You also, your news department, your editor actually has the PDF copy as well. Okay.
How are the officers receiving this?
So far so good. We started about 6 weeks ago. We made mandatory training for all police officers. I think we're about 90% of the way through. We've got a few stragglers to pick up, but certainly I delivered half of the training sessions, and I was really pleased. The mood is up. The officers think, yeah, it's about time we had something that says this is what we stand for and this is what we don't stand for.